Welcome to MRD Chatroom. I'm Philip Hackett. Today our special guest is Dale Rudder, probably best known as Mr. Dale for his exploits in the Calypso Arena. But this is a very talented young man who's been involved in many aspects of life. Welcome to MRD Chatroom, Dale.
Thank you, Phil. I like the fact that you said young man. So,
well, the fact that you mentioned it now may make people wonder why you would say that. I thought you would have just accepted it.
Accepted and thanks, man. It's great to be here. Great to be here.
The thing is, you were an even younger man at some point. In fact, during your school days, secondary school.
Yeah.
I think that was when I first ran into you. And at that time, you were one of the leading young table tennis players in Barbados, playing for a side called Bayswater.
Yes,
along with people like Trevor St. Hill, Gregory Riley, Errol Skeet.
Yes.
And, a very promising player. I don't recall, fortunately, in those days, having to come up against you, and that was good.
Lucky for me.
Thank you. But then you sort of faded from the table tennis scene to some extent, and then you emerged as a top footballer. And then you faded again, or maybe I was the one who wasn't paying attention, and you emerged again as a top Calypsonian. And in between there, I know you did other things that I may not be aware of. But let's go back to the beginning, if you can identify it. What got you involved in sport?
For me, growing up in Deacon's Farm, we were exposed to a lot of sports. Lots of sports. You had to be. That was the Nintendo of then. That was the video game of back then, right? It's cricket, football, tennis, road tennis, basketball. Everything was competitive from pitching right back up, right? Swimming, diving, everything.
Right.
Who could dive the longest? It's a whole heap of things. And I found that activity kind of shaped me and led me into sports naturally. Naturally, because, within Deacons, we had the real heroes of the communities were the sportsmen, like the Carly Bess and Ricardo Williams and like Laker Williams. And those were the guys that we looked up to, Jeff Hackett, and who would have gone on to be... there were local heroes in that, the community heroes in that they were representing the country at the highest level, and these were, and that it's possible. I was raised in that kind of environment where sports was prevalent. So it didn't really start with tennis, but
but growing up in Deacons, it wasn't surprising that you found your way down to the
Ricks, exactly.
Ricks Hall,
and that was because of football.
Okay.
I was a member.
So you're already involved in football?
Yeah, from about 7 or 8 years old. I played with a club called Graduates. It was then headed by Lawrence Small and the late great Ansel Marquez. And those guys were the father figures for so many of us, and they kind of groomed us into not just the sport, but the discipline and way of life and behavior for young men. To me, it saved a lot of us at the time from, falling astray.
How did football get you to table tennis?
I tell you. Yeah. There's we used to have the Banks tournament on the Garrison, back then, youth tournament. Like, there was like on the 9, on the 12. I think I was playing between the teams, you play up, if you had a little bit of ability, you would play up. So there was this one game that I think there was, I think we won by default. So the match didn't play. So one of the guys lived down in Brandon, so we used to walk from the Garrison home. So, it's an early day.
Good training.
Yeah, good.
You certainly would have
that's why we were slim then. You
would not have had any problems on your test.
Not at all. Yeah. And many times we used to run, actually. We used to jog. But yeah, so I was like, we said when we head into the beach, and the guys down there was this guy called Eddie. He's still a good friend of mine, Eddie Best. And he said, man, we going in here and play some tennis. I was like, tennis? I had to be about 9 or 10. Right? And he was like, yeah, play table tennis in here. So I don't know if you remember how Ricks was situated,
but
the gap behind was Bayswater Gap.
Right.
So we were watching from the outside, right? And a lot of people were in there playing, and I was like, the sound the sound, ta-talk, ta-talk,
Tennis
ta-talk,
ball,
ta-talk, ta-talk, it started to get to me. Man, I want to win. And we were allowed, because, you know, Miss Miller was very serious. You couldn't just walk in, Rick, so you had to be, you know, either brought there, or invited or something. But I think AD knew, because he lived in Brandon's.
Right.
He knew somebody there. I think it was Richard Clark or one of them that lived. Another cricketer, cricket coach right now.
Yes, he is.
I think he lived just behind Rick's, and he allowed, and we were allowed to come in, and that's how I met Mr. Harris, David Harris, that day. That same day, it was like, that was a Saturday, and they had, you know, the little youngsters were training, and I had no real coordination, but you had a little thing because...
So you played on that very first day you actually got to play?
I took a hit, but remember, we used to play road tennis.
Right.
So it came a little, you know...
A bit awkward.
Yeah. Awkward, but still you had the hand-eye coordination that was necessary. So,
okay. But
needless to say, something kind of went off in my head. We didn't play for a long time since then. It was just that experience. All right, we went off, went to the beach, ended up playing football again. That was cool, because, you know, sometimes your mother let you go out, you're gone out with the older teenagers. So AD and Robert Jones, those guys were, all right, they're the ones that in charge of me there. So we went off to the beach, I didn't pay no mind, but I kept coming back to this table tennis, tick-tock. And, you know, I left it for a little bit. You know, you had the time with it. But then, still playing the road tennis, a lot of road tennis. But then, you know, that was around the time, a year or so after, we went to, did the exam, the common entrance, and came to Queen's College. And table tennis was big then. And I remember Mary Riley.
Oh, yes. Gregory's sister.
Yeah, Gregory Riley's sister. She beat me like, I love, or one or something, give me a 21-1 or something. There was
must be very humbling.
Oh yeah, for a female, I was like, nah, boy. And there was another. There were quite a few girls here playing. Well, I say here, but at Queen's College playing.
Fair enough. I understand.
Right. I'm trying to remember this lady's name, but there was I think Rosalind Goddard. There were quite a few that were very decent players, right? And
decent level.
They beat the hell out of me. I was like, man, I gotta learn to play this game properly. And plus, the center of Rick's is down my side, so
no excuse.
No excuse. So I started to track into Rick's, and we went from one term where they were beating us, we were beating everybody. Obviously, they had the practice. And then I went down to Rick's and started to get introduced. Met Hallam Hope, and he was like, yeah, you got hand-eye, we worked with you. And then Riley was working with me too, and by the time I came back to school, it was like, wait. The next term, it was like, what? This is different. So I got a little competitive, and from there just kept going. So I said that football led me in because a footballer who actually took me into Rick's.
And but of course, you took a chance there because they could have lost you completely, but they didn't, because you stayed with your football and you excelled at that too.
Yeah.
But even so, if he stayed with the table tennis for a short while, it is amazing then from that, you know, very simple beginning.
Yeah.
And you're now at a stage where you are in charge of table tennis on the island as president of the Table Tennis Association.
It's funny. That's the last thing I pictured, honestly. But for me, Gregory Riley, Ronald Trotman, Roderick Miller, he knew like my family, you know, so they welcomed me. Hallam Hope, Ricky Cummins. I mean, so many people helped me. You know, this little skinny guy. He got a little thing. That's what Miller used to say. He got a little thing in it, you know. So they kind of like the way I used to play, and you know, and my attitude, because you had to chase me out of Rick's. I'd get real, like, it's a fixation with me and things. If
you're into something,
I want to be the best at it, and I will study it. Yeah, I can make your mistakes, and I can keep, you know, I can keep going at it until we get it right. That's just my personality. Same has applied to music, football, everything.
Talk about football though. So how do you get from a young, upcoming table tennis player who would have represented Barbados as a junior, I would imagine?
Yes.
Yeah. From there to excelling in football. I mean, I know you were involved in it before you explained.
I never stopped playing football. Yeah. Never stopped playing. Football was constant from like age 7 or so, from my introduction to graduates. The way it worked, it was like, you know, you had to kind of split up your time in terms of, but there was not other distractions. Once you satisfying your mother's quota with homework and housework, you're good to go. That's
The thing about that is that I've come across, and you talk about splitting up your time and so on, but there are many households where it is difficult because parents may be reluctant to allow children to take part in certain activities because they believe it will be detrimental to their education.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us then from your experience about that balance between academics and other things?
I'll tell you this, where football was concerned, I remember, they had the PTA meetings, and I remember this clearly. My mother came to a parent-teachers meeting at Deacon's Primary, and she knew one of the teachers there that had taught her previously or whatever. I think that was Miss Whitaker, one of them, and she said to my mother, Dale's doing well, Dale is brilliant, he likes to read, he gets into, and he could be anything, he has a lot of potential. And his initials are DR, he could be a doctor. And my mother went ballistic. She was like, yes. And start shutting out sports.
Wow.
That's serious. She started to cut down and I couldn't get it. I had to get my stepfather then to explain and try to, to ease. So
Put in a word for you.
Find a good word. You got it right. Because in those days, you had to be, and I mean it's still prevalent now, you had to really focus on this school. We were very academic and academically inclined, and it was...
So having gone through that though, how would you advise parents and students in terms of creating that balance?
That's what I get into, because I think that a lot of people say that they figured I could have gone on to be a much better footballer, but what I would say is this: I think that people, and parents particularly, need to encourage their kids to pursue excellence in general, as opposed to, you must do this math, English, history, biology. It can't just be, because to me you're limiting the child and his development, his or her development. And I mean, I thank God that I had, some understanding, well, at least an understanding stepfather that was, ease me. Yeah. And then, sometimes the coaches had to come and beg my mother to let me play football, So because she heard that and figured, you know what, this boy has a chance to be a serious academic, and there's no future in sports, so you can't really blame parents, And back then we didn't see the ESPN and the CNN. We didn't know that sports was an outlet. So let me.
So you mean there was no future in sports back then?
Back then. Yeah. Sorry if it came over the wrong way. That's how she was seeing it. There's no future in sports in 1978, 1979. You crazy?
All right, try not to
date myself.
Like what I said earlier.
Edit. But yeah, and in those times, that's how it was seen. Like I said, fortunately for me, I get a little blind. I had a little understanding, but it still was a lot of hard work. You had to put in time here, put in time there. I was junior champion in table tennis, for a long time, on the 15, on the 17, on the 21, at a young age, because I was putting in more time. And I worked at that time with who was the champions in Barbados, so I had a little advantage, because in every day that your teammate is Gregory Riley, who was like a table tennis prodigy back then.
Yeah, he was.
Won nationals at probably age 15 or so. He was national champion at 15, I think.
Quite young, I remember.
15
I remember
or 16.
one night they didn't make it to table tennis, and I stayed home and I heard that he had defeated the current champion, Gladstone Wharton, 2 or something like that.
And he
never looked back after that.
Never looked back, and it was difficult. He was a very tough, and it was good to have him as a teammate, to kind of guide you there. So where that was concerned, table tennis it used to come actually easy to me, table tennis. It was from the tennis upbringing.
But we talk about finding time to do both. But how does one help the other, especially the sport helping the academics?
Like I was saying, I think it's the pursuit of excellence overall. To me, it's the only way to go. You need understanding and not necessarily enabling parents, but parents that understand, that could facilitate, where necessary. But don't just dismiss if you got a youngster and, you got a wicked jump shot, or saying, the Bajans don't make it with that. Try and study, some kind of science or something. And I think the time for that now is in these modern technological times, and we so advanced, and there's one big global village. I think that we got to embrace the alternatives now. We got to entertainment, sports, two of the biggest industries on the planet, but somehow we don't have a professional setup, or it's not seen as an avenue or a career option. So it's tough to balance, but it's time that we get to that place. Yeah.
Talking about career options, there was a time when your focus career-wise was not necessarily music, and we're going to get to the music. But there was a time when that was not your first option, let's say, as a career. Tell us about it.
Yeah, life is funny. I left Queens, left school, and you all your friends going to university and everything, and Mom's was like, let me explain something. You can work, right? You can work and study though. So I went into Shell. I went into Shell Oil, and I was, I had an accounting background, and you started to interest in numbers, and I started to work from there. It really was reinforcement to me that maybe there's a different calling, because you never really felt 100% comfortable. It's always here to take the talk. You keep that noise. And the same thing with music. It's funny that I had, music was just something, I was just a fan of music. I follow, walk out behind Top Man and all that kind of thing. I was just into culture from that side, right? I had an uncle who used to play the steel pan, and the music and sports kind of was like in my family, well, from my mother's side, right? And my mother was one of the first female cricketers, so they had...
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was one of the first female cricketers in Barbados. Well, they were putting together a female national team. Then she was one of those...
So what's her full name for those who
Maureen Rudder.
Maureen Rudder,
okay. Yeah. People would know it's Maureen Rudder. She taught me almost all the sports.
Okay.
Road tennis. She was, she was very, very good where hand-eye is concerned. Very, 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 very good. So you can't run. You do anything, you can't run again. She could pelt real good. But yeah, and it's really just one thing led into another. But I got injured playing for Deacon's Farm, and we went to in the finals of an out-of-season tournament. Right? I think it's November the 13th. 94. You tell me don't date it, right? But they got some dates there in my head.
Afraid of.
And it's funny. I was training with the professional team, semi-professional team, Lambada, then, and we had trials. Well, we had qualified for, I don't know if it's now the Gold Cup in the U.S. It's probably now something else, but at that time it was a big regional conference in terms of like a Champions League in the region. Okay. With all the top clubs, and we had qualified for that. And Millard had picked the team. We picked the team right there in Harrison College. He threw my jersey and told me, welcome back. And got a lot of work to do, because I really started back training hard for this best tournament. And I was scoring some goals and playing pretty decent again. Okay. And anyhow, a few years before that, there was a club that came here called Basel. And that time I was in the senior national team and had a really good game. And I scored a goal from a ridiculous goal, right? So they were following me. But I had gotten an injury. They were interested in me back then. I had an injury. Okay, that petered out. But Kevin Millard, he was very resourceful, right? And he had a lot of contacts, and more or less to me, he was the best thing that happened to our football in terms of placing and as like the closest thing to an agent. You know, and he got quite a few people professional contracts and semi-pros and trials and that kind of thing.
And he was in charge of the
He was working the BDF program
yeah.
that time, but he also was the head coach of Lambada Football Club.
Okay.
So that was like, and the team was picked. We were ready to go. And he said, like, probably had like a week and a half, 2 weeks to go. And he said, okay, you got to stop playing football. We want to bring everybody together in the camp. And the players were like, nah, but you know, Deacons, we gone to finals and we don't go to the finals. These are Deacons, man, first, second, and third, you know. And we had a vote. And everybody was like, yeah, man, we got to let the men play. There were like 4 or 5 of us from Deacons that were in that team.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody playing the finals, and only Dale get hurt. And serious hurt. Yeah, knee shattered.
Wow.
Left knee shattered. ACL gone.
And likewise, your professional, the thought of
that was football. That was it for me in football. And funny enough, you know, like, music just happened from there. The very next year, music happened. I always used to write. I started writing poetry like from school, right? I was interested in poetry. And I think it was probably like one of my roommates then, Barry Allen, reporter Barry Allen.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, he was my roommate, and he was like, Rudder, this could be a song, you know. I was like, that's just my poetry. That's how I used to express myself. And, you know, sometimes, you know, that soft side to get to the girls and
Oh boy.
write some poems, you know. Well, I didn't expect that side of you. You know what I mean? That was it. Just was a little hobby.
Right.
And Barry read it, and he was like, hey man, this is good, yeah. You should try, you know, try the thing. And that turned into, this guy's passed, actually both these guys passed away now. I think his name was David Bryan. He was a friend of the family, yeah. Fletcher, that was his calypso name, Fletcher. And he said, you could sing this? So I sang it for him. He used to come to my house, right? I think he used to exercise on Brandon's or whatever, the beach. And I sang it, and he was like, no boy, let you hear, let Observer hear you. And carry me straight away up to Observer in Grisette's, which is Colin Reed.
Right, yeah.
Colin played the guitar, and he was like, and Colin stopped in between. He was like, you ever do this before? I said, nah, brother, never in my life. Actually, I hear sweating, boss. I'm so nervous. And I mean, it's like from there, we just click and move from there.
So you were in your what, 20s, 30s by this time?
Very early 20s.
Early 20s.
Late 20s, sorry.
Late 20s.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry. Early 20s.
Early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s. Keep trying to date me, but
Yeah. Well, no, I
I
mean,
don't have an age.
timeless then. Although I'm not so sure the DJ would agree with that.
But yeah, Observer. And the rest is like, Observer groomed me, taught me how to really approach the thing, the phraseology, that kind of. But I always used to listen to a lot of music. You know, from young I was exposed to, like, you know, the Sparrows, the Kitcheners. I love Gabby. John King is another one that worked closely with me too. So Bag, you know, they all embraced me because, you know, I was a national footballer. You know, people knew me, who I was, and it was like, wait, you interested in calypso? You know, so they kind of embraced me.
And I guess so his relatively recent death would have impacted you quite a bit.
Oh yeah, that was sad. That was painful. It was really difficult for me because he and I had spoken like a day or two before, and we were discussing a project. I was actually doing something for him, and I had it in my car. Right, it was just like a proposal to submit for something. And I had it, and I was actually trying to get hold of him. So I was like, I tell somebody, man, Colin's every phone ringing all the time. And the rest is, I was like, I stopped my car, and when they called me and tell me I like stopped just in traffic for like an hour. I didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? It was like, that won't hurt me because honestly, I think that, and if people knew the amount of work that Observer had, and recorded on tapes and demos and things. I mean, gems that the world will probably never hear. You know?
Work that was never published.
It's amazing. he was really one of the unsung geniuses. I've met a couple, but I know for sure he had something about Observer that, I mean, you speak to Gabby or one of them, you would understand what I mean. But something with Observer had something really special, really, really special.
But the sort of influences or people who influenced you back then and the names you mentioned, I suppose in a sense it kind of explains something that I've noticed about your performances. Very often we try to, let's say, restrict or categorize Calypsonians. You're a social commentator or you're more towards the party. And then, of course, there are a lot of other things in between there nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I've noticed about you is that you're able to bridge both at the same time. And so that you don't have to just sing something trivial.
Yeah.
If it's a party, you can marry them quite well.
Yeah, I think that's a combination of quite a few things in terms of, like, you know, I'm an avid reader, and then you got a background for a little bit of academia, right? But then still, I am interested in quite a few things. I listen to a lot of music in terms from jazz right down to even a little bit of country, you know, so it kind of influenced. So I never really wanted to be fit into just that particular box, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Because I don't even believe in boxes, but you know, that's just the categorization that's common, right? But so for me, it's more about, again, the pursuit of excellence and challenges. And so if an up-tempo, because I compose a little different in terms of, I started out with poetry, but then as I picked up an instrument, learned a bit about chords and progression, and started to play the guitar a little bit, I started to write with melody in mind as well. You know, some people write lyrics, some people compose. So I probably have been blessed enough that I can do both. So my thinking is, like, why limit yourself, you know? For me, you try to always reflect positivity, because I think that your music should reflect largely who you are, and, like, spiritually, you know, like what you represent. People should be able to hear that, and like, say you pass on, people should be able to listen to your repertoire. Like, yeah.
But it's interesting, though, because that leads me into something I was actually thinking about. Many years ago, I had not seen you for a while. I'd been there, and on my return, a good friend of mine was telling me about a song that she enjoyed.
Yes.
And she credited that song to somebody else.
Oh.
And I remember we were at the table tennis center, and I actually put you on the phone to talk to her to confirm that you were the person. And more recently, as we both know, there was another friend who knew you, but couldn't quite narrow down which really. So what would you say would be one of your signature songs? I know what it would be for me, but what would you say would be your signature
it depends
song?
on
that nobody could get mixed up, and they know that's you.
Yeah, but depends on who you like, because I mean, obviously, I'm referred to in the soca world as, you know, the soca junkie, you know, because of my passion for soca music, right? But,
and there's a song that you have that carries that name. How does that go again?
Soca junkie.
Yeah. How does that go?
Addicted to the partying, I hope it never done. Addicted to the whining, all man pan a woman. Addicted to the jumping, in me hand and waving. I'm a soca junkie, yeah, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
you win, fella. You win. It was cleverly done. I like how you gently weave yourself into it. Well done, bro. Well done, buddy. You get me to sing it, bro.
Oh, okay, yeah. So,
but yeah, that's become like, you know, that is really, I mean, I give thanks to the Almighty for blessing me with that melody, because that seems to be one that's standing the test of time in terms of, you know, a soca classic, a global soca classic. You check the amount of people like call me. I mean, recently, through the years, and recently, more so than ever, in terms of like, yeah, we want to do this and we want to do that with it. We want to use this song for this. So it's like, you know, give thanks for that. In terms of my favorite song, it may not be my favorite song, but it's the most popular song, but that's how it goes. You know, as a songwriter / artist, sometimes you go, let go of your ego and give the song to the people, and what the people hold on to. Never mind what you like, or you and your producer friends like the best, right? That's the people's song. Keep your mouth shut and go and perform it.
And appreciate the fact
that because there's so many people who have been in this industry for 40 years that they don't have a single song that you know. You know what I mean? They've not been blessed to have like a classic. You know, and that's
what are some of the other ones that you personally prefer?
I mean, on the party side, they got songs like Drop It, and my personal favorite is like Nothing Sweeter. Nothing Sweeter and Born for This.
Okay.
But I mean, hey, the first song, you know, life is so funny. The first song that really took me internationally in terms of touring and a lot of gigs and did really well was a remake I did of Kilele, right? Okay. Which was really originally an Opel song.
So how does that work when you do a remake of somebody else's work? What are the...
Well, it depends largely.
Are there legal issues there as well, or how does that work?
No, I mean, you seek permission, you know, and of course you must credit the original.
So that's what I meant actually when I said legal. I mean, what is the procedure?
Yeah, you have to credit the original writers. I mean, if it's a situation where you've rewritten part of the song and the man has given you, and the owner of the intellectual properties have given you permission, you know, well, okay, you take a piece of this because I see you change that and you give the song a new life, that kind of thing. You know, everything is negotiable in these times. Okay. Everything is living. You know, everything depends now on what you negotiate and what terms, but you must give the originators and the holders of that intellectual property their rightful credit. Yeah.
You know, we tend to, in this part of the world, judge our Calypsonians by the amount of titles they win at the stadium, at Kensington, wherever it is. And
in terms of Calypso?
In terms of Calypso. But what's the satisfaction for you as a performer in terms of your achievements in competition when compared to as a performer out there for the people?
I tell you this, there's nothing, absolutely nothing more gratifying, right, than something you start from scratch. Like say you got your guitar and you home in your chair. I got a particular couch that I sit in one spot in that couch, one spot. And there's nothing more gratifying than you seeing a piece of paper and a guitar, something that started there, becoming an anthem or in effect, and 5,000 people singing it. There's nothing more gratifying. For us, I mean, and that's as an artist, that's from an artistic side. We were born into this calypso culture of, you know, competition. But yes, you want to win. You want to win that crown, but remember that only one person can win the crown a year. A lot of men don't understand that. They can have 4 or 5 artists with big songs that will tour the world and make a living, make a handsome living, but only one person, and there's not always that one person that wins the crown that gets to go out, or his or her song doesn't resonate with the people, just resonates with 12 or 10 judges and fit in a particular criteria. So it doesn't necessarily have to be global, doesn't have to be appealing, it just has to fit in that box. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, but it's interesting though, you talk about touring and winning crowns and so on. Now, if you think of cricket, and I've had this experience, you know, traveling, where you are, people know you're from Barbados, and if you go further afield from the Caribbean, so immediately they ask you about Bob Marley. If it's something to do with sport, you know, Gary Sobers. So what I'm saying, what I'm asking you is, in your travels, in your touring, what has it been the impact of icons such as Plastic Bag, Gabby, and even if you go back further than Merry Men and other outstanding musicians?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, for such a small country, Barbados continues to amaze me, bro. I mean, even recently, it was happening. I mean, we pull away, we've got the first female prime minister, female president. You know, it's just, and Rihanna is now certified as the most successful, the most successful female artist of all times. I think she's valued near $2 billion. I mean, if you understand the industry and what it takes to generate that kind of revenue in a mere, 14, 15 years she's been in the business. You know, so Barbados continues to amaze me with just 166 square miles and the amount of talent that is prevalent here. Amazing. So, I mean, when you announce yourself as Barbadian, as an artist, you got some big boots to fill, bro. Because don't forget, you got Gabby, Red Plastic Bag, the Merry Men. That's no. But then you got Jackie Opel and Jigs Curtin, God rest his soul. I mean, these are like global talents. And to Gary Sobers, that's just entertainment. Yeah. Gary Sobers.
But that's entertainment too, Gary Sobers, trust me.
Trust me.
Yes.
Gary, Greenwich, Haynes, I mean, going all down the line. It's just, this is an island of excellence. That's the honest truth. You may agree to disagree. You got your own political pull-ins, but this is an island of pure excellence. And Rihanna just further cement that in my mind, right? So when you step on that stage, right, and you hear from Barbados, trust me, the people expect quality. I ain't even call Edwin Allison. I mean, of the younger era, you know, Edwin Allison Blood, then Biggie Irie one in Trinidad. You know, it's like first outside. Bajans are first in everything.
Of course, and there's Lil Rick as well.
Then Lil Rick. I mean, it's just the first of everything, is it? Bajans have, and music have become. Look at Michelle's band. Michelle's band is like 95, 96% Barbadian musicians. You know, there got to be something there. You know, you got Mike Seeley, who was the musical director for Sparrow for Lawyers. People didn't know that. And there's another legend, Mike Seeley. I didn't even get into the instrumentalists yet, the musicians.
Nicholas Branca.
You got Branca, Turo, Roger Gittins, Ricky Braffett. I could go on for a while, bro.
But you're talking about that going on for a while, and those names you mentioned. I recall hearing a professional musician, instrumentalist primarily, some time ago, speaking publicly, but I wouldn't call his name at this point, and making reference to the fact that, and this is a guy too with what in Barbados we would call a good educational background.
Yes.
Would have been educated not too far away from where you were.
Good.
And he shared how he was, I guess, somewhat pressured by people close to him to get what he called a real job. When he decided to concentrate on his music. How has it been really as a professional? You've gone past the days of Shell, as you mentioned. And you're now a full-time professional musician.
Full-time professional musician.
How does that work in an environment like Barbados, where you would think there really aren't that many opportunities?
I mean, music has been good to me. You can make a living. You can make a decent living. But people must get into music. And I say this to a lot of youngsters, right? You got to get into music for the right purpose. If there's love, if there's a passion in your heart for this thing, come. By all means, come. If there's creativity, come. But understand that there are peaks and troughs, and you got some downtime, right? Every day is not going to be elaborate paparazzi in your face and big shows. Every day is not going to be Madison Square Garden. You know, every day is not going to be, every day is not going to be glamorous. But you must understand that you got to put in the time. You got to work it. You got to treat it. It's not a job, but treat it like a job. when you find something to do that you love and you believe in, you don't see it as work. It don't feel like that. It's be like, yeah, let me get on here and do this little album, sell 2 or 3 million. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work that goes into it, but it does not feel like a chore, and that's the important thing. For my own mother, I was like, "Oh, you can get another job, though." I was like,
well, make it clear. I wasn't talking about you in a direct way.
I know, but I've experienced that, so I know I could fully identify where you're coming from, because that's still the mentality. I mean, largely.
So then it takes a lot of family support to be able to withstand that. I mean, yes, it may be the family that may be throwing that suggestion out there, but at the end of the day, I would think that their support is still important.
It is. It's very important. You need a support system, really, because, I mean, for people to buy into the whole thought of going after these things, because it's not traditionally a revenue earner or should we say a career choice here.
So for you, who would be some of the people to provide that support?
You need family for sure. Family. I always plead with a lot of I've worked with a lot of the youngsters in Junior Monarch through the years. Actually had a few winners there, but I always try to have conversation with their parents first, you know, and let them know, well, you know, this is music, this is a transient thing, but this is also something that you need to support him or her with. It's not you can just do this and you get angry if you don't win and that's it and gone. And I tell you, that's a waste of time. Because, you know, bitches like to do that.
I've seen that a lot in sports, especially.
Yeah, especially in sports. We don't do our sports, man. And I keep ringing home sports and entertainment. You know, we definitely got hone in on those
especially
segments.
at the young stage. Sometimes you watch a primary school or even an early secondary school game, and the parents are more into the outcome than the children.
That's why, why I put the children on pause and I make it a point to deal with, and both football, table tennis, and music. Let me deal with your parent first, because I want to see where they're coming from. I want to get the scope. And sometimes you may be able to fool me, but not for too long, because then I realize, you're just about this and just about that. You're not entirely about the sport or the development of your kid, right? And that's they need a heavy support system, and it starts with the family. But I will tell you that just having the family support is not all, because then, you know, there's the immediate the coaches, the PE staff, and then at a bigger level, it would help if we have more cultural and national support in terms of from the government and corporate, you know, because just understand that there's tremendous talent here, and once we get that buy-in, we're gone clear.
That concludes part 1 of our conversation with Dale Rudder. We look forward to gaining more valuable insights from Dale when we continue our conversation in the MRD chat room.